What's up guys, welcome back, and in this video I'd like to continue the to-do app we were building in React from the last video. So we managed to have basic CRUD going on, so we can add, we can delete, and we can edit. I'd like to continue that and work on these features over here, so we can check all, we can have a remaining count, we can filter by the status, and we can clear everything we checked. And we'll also do some animations. Okay, so let's start with this since it's probably the easiest. So we just want a remaining count based on what we check. So if we check all of them, there should be 0 items left. So if we check out view, let's see how we did that. I think I have something called remaining. Yes, so right here, I have a computed property called remaining. So right here, all it's doing is filtering the to-dos array and only counting the ones that are not completed. So let's go ahead and copy this. So in React, there's no notion of computed properties. We just make it a method and return what we need. So let me just paste that in. Just copy this and paste that. And we don't need any of this. We don't need any parameters. Let's call it remaining. And we can just return this dot state dot todos, and that should do it. Now, where we have this 2 items left, we can just call that function. So this dot remaining, and this time we want to call it to make sure it runs whenever the app runs. So let's see if this works. So if we check it, there you go, it works. Cool. Okay, the next thing I want to do is the visibility of this button. So it should be hidden by default, and it should only show when we have at least one of these checked. So let's go ahead and work on that. So we need a function, another function that returns something. Let's call it todos completed count, and we'll do that again. And this is going to return another, let's filter it again. It's just going to return the length of the to-dos that are completed. So we're taking the to-do dot completed dot length. And now up here where we have clear completed, we want to conditionally show this. So let's just do this. So this dot to do completed count is greater than 0, and put this like this, and now that should be hidden by default. Cool. But if we check one, it should show. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on actually clearing whatever is checked here. So on click here, I want to call a ClearCompleted method. So let's go ahead and make that. I'm going to copy this, paste it down here, clear completed, and this is not taking anything. And all we're doing, let's remove this, is we are going to filter the to-dos by whatever's not completed and just set it to that. So to do, not to do dot completed. Save that, see if it works. So let me just add a few, and let's remove these two, and it works. Actually, I think we can just reduce this to one line, since this doesn't mutate the actual array, it returns a new one. So we can actually do this and put prev state dot to dos, and that should work. If I'm not mistaken, just see if it works. Sorry, we have to do this to dos, and that should work. So let's add some to dos, remove these two, and yeah, that works. Cool. So I can just get rid of this. Okay, now let's work on this filter here. So whenever we click on this, we want to filter these to-dos based on this status. So let's see how we did that in Vue. So I have this filter property on the data, and I'm changing it here. So whenever I click on whatever button, that changes that state. And I also have a computed property that's to-dos filtered, and based on whatever that is, I'm filtering the to-dos. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's add a filter on our state. So right here, let's default it to all. And let's go up to our buttons here. So let's see, active right here. Let's listen for click event, and let's call an update method. So update filter. And we're going to pass it in all for this case, and this one will be completed. So down here, let's make an update filter method. Update filter, and that takes in a filter. And let's do this dot set state, and all we're updating is the filter. So we can just do this. It's the same name, so let's do filter. And that should change the filter if you go into our React DevTools. So there's a filter, it's all. Now it's active and now it's completed. Okay. Let's also set the active state if it's clicked. So let's go back up there. And we can do this. Class name equals, let's do this, and should be that class names function, and we want the active class on it if this dot state dot filter equals all for this case. Okay, so there's an active state on that, and let's do the same for the others, and this should be completed. Cool. Okay, cool. Now let's just make them behave the way we want them to. So if you go into our Vue app again, into our computer properties, we have this to-dos filtered computed property over here. So let me just copy this. And we can do something similar in React. So let me just go down here. Paste that in. Let me just change this. There's no parameters. And these are all this state. Okay. Let's change this to triple equals. And let's put semicolons on them. Cool. Now, instead of mapping over our to-dos right here, we should be mapping over that function. So this dot to-dos filtered. And that should do it. So if we add a few, these two are checked, so they should be in completed, and it works. Cool. Okay, now let's work on this check all. So when we check this, all of this should be either all checked or all unchecked. So for our check all input, let's make a new method here. So on change equals, let's make one called this.check all to-dos. So let's go ahead and make that. I'm just going to copy one of these ones. Let's call it check all to-dos, and it's only taking in the event. And we have to do that event persist so we can maintain that. And all we have to do is set the to-dos. So to-dos dot for each to-do, we want to set the completed to whatever the button was checked as. So we can get it from event.target.checked. And that should set it, but it's not going to check everything yet. So yeah, so that set it, I think, if we look at the to-dos. So it didn't set it. Let's see what's going on here. Let's make sure it's running. Oh, sorry, this should be in uppercase. So now, see if this works. Okay, so we get that. Let's see if our state is changing. So these should all be completed. Okay, so they are. You saw the line through, but they're not being checked. So to check them, we just have to go back to that other input, and we can set the checked attribute to, we just have to check if to-do.completed. So that should do it. There you go. So now it checks automatically. We also want to be able to have this be reactive. So if we uncheck this, this should uncheck by itself because not everything is checked. So let's go back to our other input here. Check all right here. And let's also set a checked property on this. And let's set that to another method that we'll make. And all that method is going to do is check if there's any remaining and call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make that. Just put it right under here where we have that remaining method we made. Let's call it any remaining. And we can do the same thing. And all that does is return if this dot remaining is not equal to 0. And now, if you check all, that checks all. Sorry, this should be a method. And now, this should work. I have a typo somewhere. Remaining. Sorry. Yes, right here. Okay. Okay, now this should work. Okay, so that works. But if I uncheck this, that one gets unchecked. If I recheck it, that one should be checked. Cool. Okay, now let's work on some transitions/animations. So if you look here in our to-do app, we have some subtle animations happening when we add and when we remove to-dos. So I used animate CSS here, but it's not as easy as it is in Vue. So I'm just going to roll out our own custom transitions, which is a bit easier. So for this, we have to add another package. And that one is the React add-ons CSS transition group. Okay, let me start my app again. Okay, let me just install it on the top, import. So I'm going to do import React CSS transition group from React, this one. Okay, so let's start with a fade transition for the ClearCompleted button once it comes in or comes out. So down here where we have ClearCompleted, right here, let's wrap everything, even the conditional here, in a React CSS transition group tag. And it's going to have a few props. One is transition name, and this is the class we have to create for the CSS transitions. So transition name. So we're going to name it fade. So we're going to have to add some classes. Transition enter timeout. Let's make that 300. That's just the time it takes to when it animates in. And another one for transition leave timeout. And let's close that tag. And let's close it down here. Cool. So let me save that. Let's go into our CSS. And we're going to have to add 4 new classes here. So whatever we named it fade. So we need a fade enter. We need a fade enter active. Then we need a leave enter and a leave enter active. Just copy that and do that. Okay. So the fade enter is what we want the element to be initially. So we're going to transition on opacity. So we want it to be 0 at first. The fade enter active is what we want to transition to. So we want it to be opacity 1, and this is the transition where we specify opacity. We're transitioning on opacity 300 milliseconds, and I want it to ease in. And the same for leave enter, except the opposite. So opacity is 1 when we start, and opacity is 0, and the transition is opacity 300 milliseconds, and I want it to ease out. And I have to spell transition right. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's refresh this. And there you go. You see the transition happen. And why is it not removing? Oops, sorry. Another typo. All about that typo life. Let's try it again. Check it, it comes in, and it's out. Cool. Sorry, guys. Another typo. It's fade, leave. Oh my god. Fade, leave, and fade, leave active. Sorry. Extra typos. Okay, now this should work. And it does. Cool. And back to our JavaScript, I'm going to do the same thing for our to-do list over here. So we'll have transitions as elements enter and leave. So right here, before we map, we can do that same tag. And right after we map. So wherever that ends, right here, React, right there, transition group. And that should animate. Animate, please. There we go. And there we go. Awesome. So there you have it, guys. We've gotten familiar with the basics of React and managed to rebuild this to-do app that we originally did in Vue. I actually really enjoyed learning about React and seeing the similarities and differences with Vue. I still very much prefer the syntax and readability of vue.js, but will continue to use React as well. In fact, a lot of the advanced Vue concepts comes from the React community. Also, the project I'm working on is a mobile app with React Native, so that was the motivation for me to hop on board the React train. I'll probably be doing a few more videos on this project to clean it up, maybe split it out into more components, and maybe even hook it up to an API. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.